Hello, gorgeous entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 309, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/309. In today's episode, I'm answering the question, what is the best email service for online business? So if you've been thinking about setting up your mailing list or changing your email list provider, you're going to find this one particularly helpful. Let's dive on in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Now, first and foremost, we need a good email service provider as online business owners for a number of different reasons. Yes, when you're first starting out and you're just emailing people one-to-one, you can use a common email service like a Gmail or just a regular email. It's totally fine. But once you get into the space of collecting email addresses and wanting to email people en masse, you need to have an email service provider. Now, one of the main reasons for this is because it ensures that you are compliant with the legal requirements for emailing people in bulk. And in Australia in particular, we have very strong anti-spam laws, but also in the EU and all around the world, different countries have different requirements. The fastest way to ensure that you're compliant is to use a compliant email provider. Now, I know that a lot of people want to find the best free email service. They see this as something where they can save some money by finding some freebies and workarounds. But ultimately, this is an important tool of the trade. Your mailing list is one of your business's key assets. So it's an area where I don't recommend you skimp, and particularly on the functionality and the automations that you need in order to run your business and grow your list easily. So the recommendations that I'm going to make, I will make them based on what stage of business that you're at. But I also want to just preface this by saying, number one, I'm not a tech expert and I can't determine what exactly you're going to need in your business. And so if you're unsure or if you have specific requirements or unique circumstances, make sure that you enlist the support and advice of a tech expert. I recommend people such as Bev Roberts, Tiffany Surata, Andrea Jordan. There's amazing people available to support you in our heart-centered community who are real experts in choosing the best email provider for your technology stack and also learning how to integrate that with the other things that you do in your business. So number two reason that you need a good email provider is for that functionality and the automations. And the third, and I think most important reason, other than of course being compliant legally, is that you want an email provider where you can quickly, effectively, and easily set up a new lead magnet, opt-in, webinar, or something that's actually going to grow your list. That's really important, especially if you are looking to grow the long-term viability and sustainability of your business. Your mailing list is one of your most important assets. So, which email service provider would I recommend for you in your online business? Number one, if you are in the early stages of startup, all the way through to having about 1,500 to 2,000 people on your mailing list, I would recommend starting with something like Mailerlite. And I'll have links to these in the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/309. Now, the reason why I recommend Mailerlite when you're first starting out is one, it's very cost effective, but also it has good functionality and it's very simple and easy to use. It's very user friendly. The user experience is fairly straightforward. It's not too complex. And so I think it's a really good platform for you to use when you're first starting out. Once you get to the 2K plus mark in your business, if you're still selling just services, so you're not selling online courses or memberships, you don't need a membership platform or anything like that, then I would recommend using either ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign. Now, there are people who are like fully ActiveCampaign lovers and you can never talk them out of it. And there are people fully ConvertKit lovers and you can never talk them out of that. I'm not married either way. Personally, when I was at that stage of business, I found ConvertKit much easier to use for myself, and the deliverability was much higher than when I moved over to ActiveCampaign. However, when I moved to ActiveCampaign, I didn't understand the way that ActiveCampaign measures the quality of a mailing list, and I didn't understand how to transition to a new mailing list provider in a way that would keep my deliverability really high. So I went from around 98% deliverability in ConvertKit. When I moved over to ActiveCampaign, we went down to like in the 60s. And that was actually because when I moved over, it wasn't managed effectively. And the person who helped me to move it over didn't realize that we were potentially damaging my deliverability with the way that we moved people over from one provider to another. This is why I recommend that you work with an expert. So someone who's really keyed up on these platforms and the things you need to do, particularly when you're moving platforms, to make sure you maintain your deliverability is critical. So if you're really curious about that, one key thing, I'll give you one little key tip, was that when we moved over to a new provider, the first few emails that I sent out were promo emails and therefore had a higher unsubscribe rate than my regular newsletter, and we were doing a bit of list cleansing when we moved over to the new provider. So we were doing things like getting people to opt out and ensuring that people were still interested. What we should have done was do that all over on the old provider and only bring the cleansed, very active list over to the new provider. We did it the exact wrong way round. And that meant that it created a big issue with deliverability, because the first few emails that I sent out when I was in ActiveCampaign were emails that had high unsubscribe rates and emails that had like low open rates and low engagement rates and high deletion rates. And so all of those things told ActiveCampaign, like, this is a newly imported list and it's not a good quality one. So we did it totally the wrong way around. And it was just a matter of not understanding or having any experience in that space. And, you know, I make mistakes so that you don't have to. So if you are going to change providers, just do all your cleansing, any of that, like getting people to unsubscribe before you move, that kind of stuff. Do it all through the old provider, not through the new one. And then once you're at the point where you're selling online courses and you want to have that course platform, if you are looking for an all-in-one, which I do recommend, I absolutely love and adore ours, then Kartra is the service that I use. And a lot of people also love Kajabi. Now, one of the pieces of feedback that I've had on Kajabi is that they have some deliverability issues in relation to emails as well. So the people that I know with lists over 25, 30,000 people, mailing lists over that amount, who use Kajabi for their courses, they actually also use ActiveCampaign for their emails. So they actually use those. They don't use Kajabi as an all-in-one platform because they've had some trouble with deliverability and the quality of getting those emails into people's inboxes. So I don't want to scare you with like deliverability issues and all of those sorts of things, but I just want to raise a little bit of awareness around those things, because we can get very caught up in other people's opinions or beliefs or other people's perspectives of the email service providers that they use. And we really want to make sure the one that you choose is fit for purpose. Now, it's very similar to the phenomenon of when someone uses an Apple computer, they want to recruit everyone to be on Apple computers. When someone is with a certain telecommunications provider, they want to convince everyone else to come and join their telecommunications provider. The reason why we as humans do this is because we want to feel like we've made the right decision. And so by getting other people to make the same decision as us, it makes us feel confident and comfortable that we've made the right decision. So I want you to just be mindful of that when you go and ask a random bunch of strangers on the internet, should I use Kajabi or Kartra? The people on Kajabi will tell you Kajabi and the people on Kartra will tell you Kartra. So it's important that rather than going and asking strangers and everyone's just going to try and convince you of the thing that they are using, instead, just spend a little bit of money hiring an expert to help understand what you need and provide recommendations based on where you're at. those people that I mentioned before, as well as other systems and tech stack providers, web developers, they will be able to give you a far more detailed recommendation based on your exact needs. And the one thing that I would recommend if you're working with someone like that is do not fall into the trap of asking them to find you the cheapest available for what it is that you're doing. I understand the desire to save money, and I understand the desire to want to limit your monthly recurring costs in your business. But as I said at the start of this episode, this is one of those really important assets in your business. And to save $10 a month, but have to ask someone to set up an opt-in for you every time you need to do it because you don't know how to use the platform and it's too hard and there's too many plugins and workarounds that you need, I think is short-sighted. Similarly, using a cheaper platform that has bad deliverability rates, but it's cheaper, isn't necessarily the right decision for your business. Maybe you choose the cheaper workaround, but then you have to pay for another tool to plug that tool into this tool. And it's just creating all of that unnecessary tech headaches and workarounds, when if you just invested in the right fit for purpose technology without scrimping and saving on this one, it would actually be far easier for you. So have a think about what it is that you actually want to be doing. And for some people, I actually recommend buying the tool that you're about to move into being ready for, rather than buying one for where you are now. So for example, in the Leverage and Launch program, which is one of my courses, my group programs on creating and launching group programs, some people will come into that program and they're currently on Mailerlite as their provider, and they've got that list under 1,500 people, and they're thinking of moving into, say, a ConvertKit or an Active Campaign, but they have plans in the next year to release a course or a membership, and it's going to be hosted on a course platform, and eventually they're going to need to move to an all-in-one platform or something along those lines. That's on their list of things that they want to move into. Then I will make the recommendation, well, let's do your first launch with the existing tools you've got and make budget in that launch for some of that income to be invested in that all-in-one platform. So if you get a certain number of enrollments in the first launch of your course, that's a sign it's time to move straight into Kajabi or straight into Kartra or straight into something that's more integrated than going in that leapfrog type of arrangement when you're not going to be staying with Active Campaign or ConvertKit for very long, because you're going to move into something that's fully integrated. So listening to this, hopefully I've given you some things to think about and my recommendations of email services for online businesses. It's one of the most common questions that I get asked, and it's usually one that requires me to ask 3 or 4 follow-up questions to be able to provide a recommendation. But ultimately, if you're in those early stages of startup, I think Mailerlite is pretty hard to beat. If you're in that 2,000 to 10,000 people on your mailing list and you're not selling online courses, you don't need an all-in-one platform, ConvertKit is pretty much my favorite, but I do know that there are a lot of people who love Active Campaign as well. And then if you're moving into having that fully integrated all-in-one platform, I love Kartra. That's why I'm on it. There are some good reasons to jump into Kajabi as well. So one of those two is likely the one that I would most recommend for you. Now, I am an affiliate for Kartra. So if you are interested in doing a free trial of it, I'll have my affiliate link to go and check it out. You can do a free trial of, I think it's $1 actually, a $1 trial of Kartra and have a little play with it. That when we moved from using a bunch of different systems into an all-in-one like Kartra, it was really powerful and it saved me a bunch of money. So we now use Kartra instead of Active Campaign for emails. I had Thinkific for course hosting. We had an affiliate plugin that we used for affiliates. And we also had Zendesk for our help desk. So we went from using all 4 of those plus a very expensive version of Zapier or Zapier, I don't know how you say it, to get them all talking to each other. So I went from about $400 to $450 a month in all of those different platforms down to $125 a month using Kartra. So for me, it was a really smart financial decision to make that move because we were able to eventually transition all of those services. Now, the last service that I will be transitioning over to Kartra is also my integrated calendar. So at the moment, I use Acuity for calendar bookings. Kartra does have a calendar service. It's got a couple of functions that they're working on that it doesn't have right now. So I've decided not to move over until those are all set up. But once that's set up, I'll also then save money on having my paid version of Acuity, and I'll be able to move that into Kartra as well. So for me, it's a big cost saving to move over to Kartra. And to be honest with you, I wish I'd gone straight there instead of via Thinkific, but it didn't exist back then. So, we had to have our transition through our Frankenstein version of having lots and lots of different items. So I do love Kartra. There are certain people who I recommend Kajabi for as well. I'll make sure I've got links to all of the different platforms so that you can go and check it out, as well as some of my favorite systems and tech stack peeps, so you can go and have a chat with them if you are unsure of where to go to from here. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. If this has piqued your interest in growing your list and making sure that you've got that working on autopilot, you're getting your list growth happening, I do have a free resource for you. It's called Grow Your Audience. It's a 40-minute training on how to get that list growth happening for each stage of business as well. I'll make sure I link to that in the show notes as well. Everything can be found at tashcorbin.com/309. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.